Listen up, you dirty fucking liberals! On today's episode, we're going to be discussing what is a liberal. Moto, Manimal. What is a liberal to you?
Yeah, I mostly agree with that. I would say liberal values are explicitly like believing in democracy, believing in like the institutions that hold democracy together specifically. So like you can technically I don't know. I think you can still have liberals who are kind of like right leaning. It's just basically the idea of like expressing yourself in a government system. Like that's more core to liberal values than I would say like abortion is or anything like that.
Well, those tenets sound wonderful and agreeable to the majority of the peoples. But if we were to follow what the GOP says about liberals, we would be assuming that liberals are just gay creeps who wants to trans your kids. And how does that make you feel knowing that they are actively seeking to destroy good faith conversations with the entire other half of the country by demeaning them and reducing them down into a caricature of liberalism that they've set?
Yeah, I mean, like basically, it's not surprising, right? Like a big thing in the rise of authoritarian regimes is always this idea of like painting them versus us, right? So an easy way to do that is by actually applying what America was basically founded on, was liberalism, and using that as a demeaning label for the other side, for like weak, feckless, blue-haired, people. Even though I think we all agree that liberalism encompasses more than just like left-leaning ideals or the left side of the aisle. In fact, like when people refer to things like neoliberals, they're talking about center or left people usually, but there are people on the right who do it and all that. So it's not surprising. It's frustrating to see for sure, because it literally is the erosion of liberal values in this country. But the only way to kind of fight that is to fight fire with fire, in my opinion, and start using the very like hyperbolic, very reactionary way that the GOP has gone and throw it right back in their face. But yeah. Yeah, and to be clear, I think that Republicans have been very successful in this front, but that also we as like liberals have allowed this to happen because there is I don't want to say it's cowardice, but there's a hesitancy to like actually push back on these ideas in super meaningful ways and kind of stand our ground, right? I think that if we look at like the past 10 years in America, I think liberals have been pretty weak, if I'm just being 100% honest. That doesn't mean every single liberal has been weak, but there's like a refusal to push back on ideas that don't align with us, whether those ideas are left words or right words. And there's like a high ground mentality that's been like infected throughout all of the Democratic Party that we see nowadays. It doesn't really work because nobody's fighting for the high ground anymore, right? The conservatives gave that up a long time ago, so we have this constant, and for some reason we have this constant need to be up there. But that's not where the fight's happening. The fight's happening in the mud. And unfortunately, we have to be aggressive with the ways that we assert ourselves, rather than what I would say the last 10 years, which has been a pretty passive route. I don't know. How do you guys feel? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'd agree
Well,
with that.
speaking
Go ahead.
well, speaking of debate and open discourse, how do we as liberals fight fire with fire and roll in the mud with these conservatives post the assassination of Charlie Kirk, given the treacherous political discourse surrounding a topic such as that?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. I also think that there's like a hesitancy from like liberals to sometimes engage in some of these topics that do resonate with people, but may not be like the most intellectually honest. The big example I have off the top of my head is the Epstein files. Should not probably be shutting up about that right now. Right? Thomas Massey is pushing for it. MTG is pushing for it. We have a little bit of support from the other side, and it's an area where Donald Trump is extremely weak. But I think there's a hesitancy from like people like Destiny who appreciate intellectual honesty, going like, is this really like a deep-seated conspiracy that affects all of these top political leaders and all that? But the fact of the matter is that we need to be willing to dive in the mud on those. We need to be willing to fight on those grounds because they are, number one, a very big separator between the current administration in power and us, and number two, it resonates with a lot of people. I am tired of hearing about Epstein at this point, but for some, it's never from Democrats that I'm hearing about it. It's always from people on the other side, the more conspiratorial thinking, and that might be like a dangerous pill to take short term, but unfortunately, short term, we don't know if democracy is going to exist in 4 years. So we kind of gotta, we gotta hit the fire alarm on that. Well, they'll also. Oh, sorry. Well, I was just gonna say. Well, also, like the thing is that I noticed that there once again there's this intellectual honesty from the liberal side, right? So like when Stephen King tweeted out that wrong quote from Charlie Kirk and then was corrected on it, he tweeted out an apology after. I have never seen a Republican tweet out an apology or tweet out that I was wrong, fucking ever. Right? There needs to be kind of this doubling down and this moving on because there's a refusal to back down on these narratives to like a schizophrenic degree, right? You still have people saying that Floyd died of a fentanyl overdose. You have all, they never give up on these narratives and they'll never admit they're wrong on these narratives. And unfortunately, in like the world of the internet, that's important. Saying you're wrong is kind of wrong in this current media environment. And it sucks. But yeah.
I personally, through the debates and interactions I've had with some of the more unhinged counterparts or society, have come across an issue where the underlying heuristics of their beliefs are not compatible or congruent with my own. And how do we bridge the divide between the two sides for issues such as those surrounding things like free speech, where they're not um, consistent and they'll deny free speech given applications that are not beneficial to their own or to themselves? How do we interact with people who try to deny any cohesion with us?
I mean, I think there's a common ground argument here for sure, right? Like the whole idea behind like canvassing and stuff like that is meeting people where they're at. But at the same time, I think part of the problem is once again just the unwillingness to like actually stand on your beliefs, right? It was like when Erudite went on Jesse Lee Peterson the other day, and he asked her, "Who would you rather have as president, Trudeau or Trump?" And she said they're both corrupt, right? And it's like I understand she's trying to make a bridge to Jesse Lee Peterson on that fact. I understand the goal, but the problem is that like in his head that's a win. In his head, they're agreeing with him. And so if he can bring you down to that level where Trudeau and Trump, even just verbally, because I don't think Erudite actually believes this, but if he can bring you down to a level where you think both of the people are equal on this issue, then he's won because was it because they're the shittier party? They'll always go lower. They'll always fucking do whatever they need to. And if you can bring Democrats down to that level, right? If you could bring Hillary Clinton to be viewed as a criminal in the same aspect that Donald Trump is, well, then when she doesn't get convicted, he's like, oh, look, the justice system is corrupt. Oh, look, they're coming after me. So I agree that we need to find common ground and common axioms, but we need to also stand strong on the things that we know are true and are objectively true. That is one thing that like Republicans will stand strong on shit that they know are lies. And we can't even stand strong on things that we know are 100% true. And there's a big difference there that I'm just not sure that finding common ground is really going to resolve. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I guess, uh, I guess my only like kind of just my final closing thoughts on things, to move into the next segment, just overall are that when I worked in sales, when I was a new salesperson, one of the things I thought that I had to do was I thought I had to kiss the customer's ass in order to get sales. Um, I had to agree with everything that they said. I had to, go along with the things that they wanted in order to push them towards the outcome that I got. As I developed in sales, I learned that that's not actually the case at all. That all you're basically doing at that point is like being like a cash register for these people and just like trying to agree with them throughout the process. The way to actually turn people into like sales, to turn people who wouldn't normally buy stuff into stuff people who would buy stuff, is by actually like pushing back on some of the things that they say and actually standing strong. And it's not like you have to shit on the other people, but it's like, oh, well, why can't this phone be like half the price that it is? And it's like, well, that's just not how it works. And more often than not, you're still going to get a sale out of that. So it's not really directly responding to your point there. I feel like I always see this need from people on the left to capitulate to people to the right in order to get to that common ground, but it's just not true. People actually do deal with pushback in a decent way. Like they actually do crave it a little bit. So yeah. Yeah, I get you. I get you. So I'm the editor in chief. Kafka is basically like my assistant editor. He contributes sometimes to the EO reports, and then he does a lot like going on stream and promoting. I'm the editor in chief. Pretty much everybody else is a contributor on that. Yeah, so like the Pragmatic Papers started because around that time it was like I think it was February or March, and Donald Trump was just doing whatever the fuck he wanted. I mean, he still kind of is, but at least it's a little bit lesser than the shock from initially where it just seemed like every institution was failing. And so there was kind of this exactly. He's doing the best. He's awesome. Um, and part of the problem was that like I feel like and this is not an uncommon belief in our circles, right? That the media is kind of failing, right? They're not pushing back in any meaningful capacity. And then some of the stories that were coming out were just wild, and some of the stuff that people run with on like Twitters and stuff on Twitter, and by narratives are big. So I wanted to do basically like a news roundup each week from some of the people in the community. Uh, and I know we have very smart people in the community from the canvassing program. We have a bunch of very smart, very talented young people. And I figured that there was at least a way to get people who believe in truth and who are willing to do like the journalistic work in order to make those pieces actually like sound to the truth and actually put them out into the community basically. And then of course there's also an emphasis on driving people to political action, right? Like I'll be real, a big worry at the time was that there's going to be this complete fascist takeover within 6 months, and that at the very least, what I could try to do is drive people to political action to try and do that. So those are kind of the tenets that went into the founding of the papers. Since then, I think we've done like 30, almost 30 volumes. Today might be the 30th volume, or tomorrow when I release it, the 30th volume. And I have a wonderful group of contributors who bring me really good pieces every week. And yeah, now I now I kind of do it for them because it's tiring sometimes, but it's worth it. But yeah. Mhm. Yeah, last week. Utah Valley, I think Utah Valley University. Yeah, basically, I get really irritated. I got some heat in in the comment section of this one because I said that the shooter's motivations were still broadly unknown. Because people kept pointing to like his gay relationship with his roommate and the things that his mom has said, and the fact that there was fascists or fascist on the bullet, right? The Bella Ciao and the catch this fascist on the bullets that the shooter shot. Um, and then once you start looking at stats and once you start looking at like actual political leanings, it these aren't solid pieces of evidence, right? I think I put it in the comment. I think I put it in the comment section, or it's actually in the paragraph below, where like 70% of Gen Z has pro LGBT views, right? They think gay people should be able to be married and they're equal members of society. Um, when you talk to his mom's views, she says he has pro LGBT stance, which is like, yeah, he's in a gay relationship. He probably does. But this, once again, doesn't mean that you're on the left because roughly 40% of gay people are either independent or Republican. So it's just like the strongest things we have are like kind of indications on it. But then when you look at his Discord messages, he's only mentioned Biden and Trump once each since 2019. Um, there's no other indications of this, right? The narrative that the right tried to sell pretty immediately was that this was a left-wing shooter. This was a trans, obsessed shooter who took out a political opponent. But there's just nothing that's come out that's really substantiated that evidence. There's like little ticks here and there. I'm not going to say that like it's completely neutral, but I wouldn't say that it's strong evidence that he's left-leaning. Like 70% of kids get their political views from their parents, and his parents were hardcore MAGA. They were religious. They had him, in a household with guns from a very young age. So it's just very, very weird that we don't have any official statements from the shooter about his political leanings. None of his friends have come out and said he's a super lefty or anything like that. There's no messages amounting to that fact. It's just all speculation based off like one little chunks of words. And yeah, I really hate it because if we buy into this narrative, then if we buy into the narrative that the shooter's left wing based off the evidence that we have now, then it's essentially buying into the narrative that the left is attacking the right. Even though statistically that's not true, we all know that's not actually true. That right wingers have shown roughly 3 times the amount of violence towards left wingers than vice versa over the past like 10 years. So I hate seeing people concede on this point, and once again, I think it's people trying to be intellectually honest. That's cool, but we have to understand that being intellectually honest here is saying that the shooter's motivations are unknown until we have some harder evidence out there. Instead of yeah, I mean,
Well,
even when oh, go ahead.
I can easily dispute the equivalency between being pro LGBTQ or gay, equating left leaning views. Because do either of you remember the time the Navy SEAL from SEAL Team 6 tweeted out at Dean Withers and his friends saying that he was going to turn them into his
Yeah,
femboy gay concubine?
so,
Yes.
such a banger. Well, and then you start looking, right, like, at the DN or at the RNC last year, we saw grinder usage up by like 3,000% or something like that in Milwaukee. I think somebody even released an article saying that it happened at the Charlie Kirk Memorial this time. I don't know if that
Yeah,
one's true,
didn't
but
they crash the grinder servers?
yeah. I have no clue. All I do know, because in my brief time in DC talking to like all the political people there, there's like quite a few closeted gay Republicans. Uh, Allegedly, I heard, of course, Lindsey Graham is the obvious one. I heard Gates as well. I don't know how. These are all rumors, okay? But yeah, the you would be my yeah, not the
Do
straightest
not
thing I've
men.
seen him.
You're boys. If there was no social media, you would be my concubines.
Yeah, like if the line for the shooter being on the left is if he's ever cracked a dude, then I feel like half the right is on the left there.
And shout out to the Andrew Tate, Megan Fox or Hulk Hogan uh, line.
Yeah, it's a lot of like
Would you rather
I've had
would you rather fuck Megan Fox with a dick or Hulk Hogan with a vagina? Is probably it is the smartest thing that has ever came out of Andrew Tate's mouth.
yeah, pretty low bar to get over there, but for sure. So yeah, I just don't like the framing that's going on. And then like I saw I in one of my Reddit comments that I linked you guys, I saw Hutch do it and it was like 14 minutes in. I can't really remember the exact time. But he didn't like to be clear, he didn't say like, oh yeah, the shooter's on the left. But he was watching a shoe on head video and he said, and she said, oh well, we know now that the shooter's left wing. uh, at the time that she released the video, we didn't know that, obviously. And then Hutch said, well, with stuff that's been released, I think at one point, uh, that we do know now. And it's like, we don't know. Just to be clear, we don't fucking know. Even the guy that the initial report that, even the guy that was interviewed that said that the roommate was transitioning is like at the end he's like, oh yeah, Charlie Kirk was a good dude. It's like this guy's clearly a Republican. Of course he's gonna think two dudes kissing is some really gay shit that it's clear they're on the left. But I'm sorry, I thought the initial link had it. I tried doing it. I really don't know how to do timestamp links, I'll be honest. I'm very computer illiterate. So
Side note, Manimal, can you confirm that that was a lot of beans? Yes or no?
That was a fuck ton of beans. She had that shit filled up to the brim. I don't know how that wasn't spilled
Oh,
all over her
that's a lot of
tray.
that's a lot of beans, you nasty bitch. I love Kyle Kalinske.
Yeah, it's this really weird dichotomy where, and we all know about it, where all of our like major left figures came out immediately and were like, "This is bad. This is not good. People getting shot, not good." But because there were some fucking white women on TikTok who were celebrating it, all of a sudden the left is the party of murder and all this shit. Let's ignore January 6th. Let's ignore all the actual political violence that comes out of the right. Let's ignore the Hortmans being assassinated earlier this year. Let's ignore Pennsylvania, was it Pennsylvania governor's house being burnt down? Let's ignore all of that shit. Yeah. Let's ignore all that shit. And let's look at some random 2 likes on fucking TikTok saying that they're glad Charlie Kirk is dead. It's just crazy. We live in a weird world. Mhm. Oh yeah, no. I mean, like, I think that particular link is just like to that one website. This actually, I didn't even include the Jimmy Kimmel shit in this article, so it just got truer. As, yeah, yeah. This is out of date. It's not as bad. It's worse than I than the article makes it out to be. Yeah, yeah, they're going. Yeah, for sure. I mean, and it's so broad. The like kind of relief to this, if there is relief, is that obviously EOs are not laws. So he said a bunch of wild shit in EOs. I know this because I have to read each one of Kafka's EO reports where he'll say some crazy shit and then literally it'll get shot down in court the next week. So that's kind of it. That's kind of the saving grace here. But then there's other issues, right? Like the day that Charlie Kirk got shot, they pushed through expedited nominations for certain positions in the federal government. I don't know off the top of my head if those were judges, but if they were, that's not good. We're just in a not good situation right now where they are flipping all of the levers of democracy back at us. So yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it. It's it's so disgusting. I know technically it would have been more relevant to find Charlie Kirk doing it, but there's just no picture that exemplifies what I'm talking about better than that, in my opinion. Yeah,
Can
it's
we
just such
take a
a
second, real
like
quick, to just
yeah.
drive home the fact that Hassan Piker, the terrorist sympathizer, stared in horror of, over the footage of Charlie Kirk's death, was
Yeah,
terrified, and still has not even said anything too provocative about it.
yeah, too for he does lean into it a little bit. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, but then
no,
you
I'm
have, like
talking like even his reaction to it. Like when it happened, the moments it happened, he was fucking terrified because I'm pretty sure he also knows that he becomes public enemy number one. Also, if it escalates and retaliatory measures are taken.
yeah, for sure. I think yeah, there's like all the influencers I think kind of got like a reality check of like you can't just consistently say stupid shit. Eventually, somebody's gonna do something. Not that it's good, just to be clear, bad. Don't do it. But like, yeah, go ahead.
Well,
Huh.
actually, the idea of a society having a baseline level of fear for civil interactions actually a right wing argument um, for the Second Amendment, um, stating that there needs to be a unstated level of threat to ensure civil discourse amongst civilians, to where if an individual acts out of line, they will be swiftly corrected. And I think that anybody on the right, especially the pro Second Amendment folk uh, objecting to that um, immediately makes them hypocrites and disqualifies them from conversation because they're acting in bad faith.
Yeah, well, yeah, and they should probably have a fear of like this country breaking down to the point where we're in a civil war. But it feels like they are very confident because of like their propensity for guns and stuff like that, and because they have a decent chunk of the military that buys into their side, that they would be okay. But the reality is that like civil war, I know civil war is like unironically the worst outcome for the United States because it's not like back in the times of slavery, right? Where China and Russia weren't up our ass ready to capitalize on any internal strife. If civil wars to break out in the US, I'm going to be honest, at that point is probably functionally gone, right? China's going to capitalize on their opportunities, Russia is, but there just needs to be a healthy fear of those consequences as well. It's like mutually assured destruction, basically. Mhm. So I agree with that. What like I'm basically trying to say is that we need to not get to that point because you're right, right? Like genocide can spin out of civil war, or like I said, like I was saying, right? Like Russia and China can come in and basically take over the government and take over our resources, stuff like that. At that point, right? Like if we're at civil war, we've reached what I would consider the worst case scenario. It can still get worse, but civil war is the point where I don't think America can function as a country anymore, and that at that point it's functionally done, like actually cooked. Yeah, like in terms of like people dying and shit that can happen, like yeah, I agree with you, right? There are worse things that can spin out of it for sure, but like at that point, I don't think we even have a country anymore. I think we're just done. And then there's going to be tragedy that follows that.
The only thing I would have to say is if the U.S. would fall, it would be such a large scale event. Besides power grabs from Russia, China. We would also see majority of the world collapse,
Yeah.
specifically from how much food we export. And not to mention specifically to China, we're one of the largest grain exporters besides like Ukraine and I can't remember the other one. But we export a lot of food to other countries, so we would essentially starve several countries, and the world would not be able to compensate fast enough, and would lead to hundreds of thousands of deaths, if not millions, outside of the U.S.
Yeah, correct. Like the U.S. breaking down into civil war means that, as- like the world as we know it is pretty fucked. So yeah. Yeah, like we can acknowledge that he did a lot of work in his space. He's a very influential person in his space. He did he did a lot of shit, right? That does not mean that shit was good. That does not mean that the things he did was good or that he was a good person at the end of the day. And I have continued to have this argument with the same fucking people, and they just cannot get it through their head that yeah, just because you do a lot of stuff and you have furthered your causes does not mean you're a good person, right? Just because Hitler was really effective at getting his policy through doesn't mean Hitler was a good person. Yeah, exactly. Like to take it away from real life and into fictional. Attack on Titan, Aaron Yeager. I wouldn't call him a good dude, but all he really wanted to do was to protect his friends. That doesn't mean he's a good guy. He still killed a fuck ton of people. Mhm.
I'm not gonna lie. Me personally, the only thing I remember from Attack on Titan is the potato bitch.
She's the goat.
um,
Yeah, he's
I'm
sick.
I'm
He decided
pausing
to do a
for my
podcast while
coughs.
sick.
Look, yeah. Well, no, it's just upper respiratory. I find the mode and methodology that Charlie Kirk practiced and the frontier he set for creators and organizers like ourselves to be incredibly impressive, and will absolutely give them his flowers in those regards. But the words from his own mouth, given the Second Amendment within a society, it should be expected that some people will die. Those were the ideas that were portrayed by him. Now, do I think that he deserved it? Absolutely not. That's horrendous. Nobody should be killing each other out here. That's what's the point? It's you're wasting human existence, which is probably the most valuable commodity that we have as humans. But I will never pretend that he expressed quality ideas or he did so in a good faith manner. All the man ever did was argue against ill-prepared college students. He never searched for more challenging experiences, um, which I think is a travesty for quality discussion. And then going off of that, you can make whatever conclusions you want about the man's integrity or intellectual honesty. Um,
Sorry about that.
Going forward, we need to learn from him. And regardless of his intentions for what he was doing, um, I would say on the surface what he was doing was good in some regards. And I think that we need to carry that on through organizations like Unfuck America, where we need to promote discourse and we need to take the good from him and his life and then apply it to our own because regardless of the good or the bad of an individual, everyone has good qualities in some regards. Insert joke about Hitler being a painter. Um, but we need to move forward and learn from this and take some good out of a horrifying event.
going to go, I want revenge, not to have revenge. Charlie Kirk would not want revenge.
You want revenge at the voter
That's
box.
that's where to go.
But unfortunately, we don't have so many ballot boxes.
Is the message to the right, the people that are going to go, I want revenge, not to have revenge? Charlie Kirk would not want revenge.
You want revenge at the voter
That's
box.
that's where to go.
But unfortunately, we don't have so many ballot boxes because they have mail-in voting, which is totally rigged.
Okay.
You know, there are a lot of problems. I like ballot boxes where you can. They do mail-in voting all over the place, which is rigged. Anytime Jimmy Carter. They had a commission. He said, anytime you have mail-in voting, it's a crooked election, okay? And they got to stop. But I say, so I can't really say at the ballot box because in some cases, like California, doesn't have ballot boxes.
Did he just say California doesn't even have ballot boxes? Can we talk about that super quick?
They send out 38 million ballots. Nobody knows where the hell they're going. Then they come.
Well, and this is like kind of standard stuff too. In Nevada, they send out those ballots to everybody. They don't care. And then, but it's not like, but Nevada is like is a fucking purple state. It doesn't change the election results to be Democratic.
Come back. Democrats get more than Republicans.
Right.
It's so unfair, the system, and we're going to fix this system.
What are you going to do?
Well, well, and then just completely disregarding, right, the entirety. We all heard it in 2020, where he was like shitting on mail-in voting, and then, oh my God, you're telling me we lost the mail-in vote? That's crazy.
Simply put, simply put, also, Trump's a fucking retard. Can we please watch the Electric Sharks clip after this? If you know what I'm talking about, the Electric Sharks rant, please. I'll look it up. Who who fucking cares?
I I'll be honest, I don't think he's gone back to it. I think every tweet I've seen, even the long ass schizophrenic ones, like they'll have caps like to emphasize words. I do the same thing, but I don't think there's been any all cap. Yeah, I don't think that's completely stopped. True. Yeah, I feel like I'm crazy sometimes because I have people saying like, "Oh yeah, 2028 will be fine. We'll sweep and all that stuff." And it's like we had a less competent Trump administration last time, and they almost took the reins of power back from a lost election. I don't know why we would think there'd be a different outcome this time. Oh yeah. And it's not even like right. I agree with you 100%, right? Like turning it into something that is appealing for people to go and vote. That is one route. And then there's the route through gerrymandering where even if they vote, it doesn't fucking matter because their district is, already predetermined. Or if you look at like an EO from 3 months ago where he like basically tried to assert that he had full control over elections. It's like, yeah, nothing about this administration's actions make me think that elections coming up are going to be fair. To be clear, we still need to go out and vote and do all that. But like we need to understand what exactly is going on before we make these very like strong assertions that it'll be okay because we'll be in power against it. Mm. All right. Mhm. Mhm. Oh yeah, yeah. I 100% agree with you, right? Like that is a definite possibility. And yeah, people would sue and some of those lawsuits would 100% go through, but if Trump has, 40% of federal judges on his side and 40% of federal judges will, rule in his favor, then he has tipped the scales unimaginably at that point, right? It doesn't even require 40%, like 20% of judges. So it's just yeah, it's completely insane to me that people assert this like it's true. I am all for giving it a shot in 26 and seeing how we do. But the reality of the situation is that 26 for me is more of like a pre-run for 28. If we are allowed free and fair elections in 2026, I think we'll be a lot better of a situation in 2028. But if Trump tries to put his thumb on the scale in a major way in 26, which he probably will because he has thin margins and Hutch is right, he is losing support, right? Like theoretically, Democrats should win the midterms, right? But if he allows that to happen, then I feel a lot better about 2028. If he starts fucking around, like I assume he's going to, then 2028 starts to look a lot more grim. Mhm. Oh yeah, exactly. I would push back on your assertion that it's legal, not that it changes anything. It doesn't matter if it's legal, right? He has full immunity granted by the Supreme Court for any official actions he takes. If he is investigating quote unquote Antifa members at 2026 in the polls, even if the courts determine that that is 100% illegal, it doesn't matter. He has immunity. He doesn't give a shit. So like, yeah, I mhm. Yeah, exactly. So it's just, yeah, I agree with you. I feel like I feel like the people who are like, oh yeah, it's gonna be fine. We have elections, are just fail to realize that like the scope of power that Donald Trump has taken in this country so far, right? Like I am black pilled. I will be at the polls on November whatever 2026 and 2028, but like to act like, oh well, he's not going to do that, like it's going a step too far. I feel like you're just fundamentally living in copium at that point.
Ask you a question. And he said, nobody ever asked this question, and it must be because of MIT, my relationship to MIT. Very smart. He goes, I say, what would happen if the boat sank from its weight and you're in the boat and you have this tremendously powerful battery and the battery's now underwater and there's a shark that's approximately 10 yards over there. By the way, a lot of shark attacks lately. Do you notice that? A lot of shark. I watched some guys justifying it today. Well, they weren't really that angry. They bit off the young lady's leg because of the fact that they were not hungry, but they misunderstood who she was.
I just love the justification of why he's talking about. There's been a lot of shark attacks lately. You've all seen them. That's why I'm thinking about this. I'm very smart. I've seen them and I've put the dots together, and it's great.
No, 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 no. What kills me at first, is that he prefaces the statement beforehand by putting himself on the same level as someone from MIT.
I mean, he is. So, right? Like we all understand.
I'm so smart.
These people are crazy.
You know
He
he
said
took his
there's no
Tylenol
problem
that
with
morning.
sharks.
You know he took his Tylenol that morning.
They just didn't really understand a young woman swimming now really got decimated, and other people too. A lot of shark attacks. So I said, so there's a shark 10 yards away from the boat, 10 yards, or here. Do I get electrocuted if the boat is sinking, water goes over the battery, the boat is sinking? Do I stay on top of the boat and get electrocuted? Or do I jump over by the shark and not get electrocuted? Because I will tell you, he didn't know the answer. He said, you know, nobody's ever asked me that question. I said, I think it's a good question. I think there's a lot of electric current coming through that water. But you know what I'd do if there was a shark or you get electrocuted? I'll take electrocution every single time. I'm not getting near the shark.
Did I miss the part where the MIT guy has any sort of experience with this whatsoever? Or did Trump just ask a guy from MIT?
I have a better question. I have a better question. I have a better question. Why has nobody asked Trump to explain the difference between amps and volts?
I don't know.
I
You're a
think
loser.
I
That's
think
what
I
I
think
think.
I think he would have another stroke on top of the TMI he already had. If you tried to get him to explain what ohms are.
I think he'd just be like, I
Resistance.
don't know.
The only resistance I know is liberal resistance.
Jesus Christ.
Whoa, calm down, Jeffrey. Get a little too handsy there, fella.
I've got like 30 minutes left, so up to y'all.
I'm sandwiched between the two.
Uh-oh, poor boy in chat. He's a loser, folks. He has ads on his premium. That's what they gave
Imagine not
Epstein
even getting
a
ad
super thing.
blocker installed.
No, we support our creators here.
Song, of course, you haven't. Your
Skill
normal,
issue.
but have you ever? I wondered where the Nazis got their theme song. Of course, you haven't. Your normal, but the story has fascinating historical parallels to what's going on in the news today. So I would like to tell you the story. How they say history repeats itself. Seriously, buckle in for this one because it is fucking wild, you guys. Hi, I'm Kate. I'm a historian, and today, unfortunately, we're going to talk more about Nazis, in particular, Horst Wessel, a man whose murder was strategically politicized and propagandized by the Nazi war machine into being made a martyr for the Nazi cause. And, this is also true, whose shitty Nazi jam band music became the official national anthem of Nazi Germany. So Horst Wessel had rancid vibes from the start. He got his start in right-wing youth groups, and then as he got older and political tensions began to rise in Germany, he became a member of several different violent extremist right-wing paramilitary groups, and he founded his own. Their stated purpose was to raise our our boys to be real German men. So a little bit of historical context about these youth groups that's important to the story. Before the Nazis consolidated power, Germany had this diverse landscape of competing political youth organizations that reflected like the broader political ideologies of Germany. Communist groups and socialist groups and Marxist groups, and a lot of times they would violently clash in the streets. It was like Sharks and the Jets, but with politics. The groups did function as like actual youth groups. They did like sports and hiking and camping, social activities, but they also served as recruitment pools for their like parent political movements. So when Hitler came to power in 1933, he saw these youth groups as like a means of gaining control of the population. And so he basically said all of the other youth groups except for ours are banned. And by 1936, membership was basically compulsory, which gave them a really useful tool into embedding Nazi ideology into the culture at large. Okay, so back to Wessel. As the Nazi Party rose to prominence, Wessel jumped ship over to the Sturmabteilung, or the SA off
brown shirts,
or the stormtroopers. They were the
I mean,
paramilitary
it would make sense
wing
to
of
me, but all of my World War II, all of my World War
Well,
II knowledge comes from The Sound of Music. So
Hitler had brown shirts. Meanwhile, MAGA has black and yellow polos.
well, yeah, Obama has the brown shirts. You forgot about that, didn't you?
No, tan suits.
That's just the liberal framing.
Well, unironically, no, they were straight up just the Nazi equivalent of the Proud Boys or Patriot Front.
Do you think the leader of the brown shirts put something into his butt on a live stream too, or was that just us? No.
If cheating, uh,
I don't know
also
about his
cheating,
stream.
also cheating at chess too while you're at it.
Of the Nazi Party. So Wessel was particularly drawn to the SA because of the involvement of Joseph Goebbels, who I talked about in my last video, and he created this atmosphere of like highly visible activism, which felt way more exciting and cool than like boring like petitions. Just go out and brawl in the streets for the Nazis. Was great for Wessel because in particular the group that he joined were known as being kind of like violent street fighters, and they were often asked to provide protection for Hitler himself and other Nazi leaders when they made speeches in the city. And so as a result, Wessel got the attention of Goebbels. In particular, Goebbels was impressed with his speaking ability and his leadership into like encroaching on communist territory, because like the communists were like the rival gang, right? And the thing that I need to stress here, and is really important when we're looking at historical parallels, is that Goebbels had an ongoing relationship with Wessel. We have Goebbels' diary. And like Vessel shows up almost once a month in 1929. Vessel was on his radar as this guy who had leadership qualities, knew how to speak to people, and could also hold his own in a fight. They had like
I'm noticing.
discussions and conversations about like how do we get more Nazis. So in 1929, Vessel drops out of college to pursue being a Nazi professionally and starts giving speeches all over. In 1929, he gives like 56 different speeches.
I like the implication that content creators are Nazis. That's the parallel.
Speeches about how
Listen, being educated and going to college is cringe and gay. Sign up for my 12-week course and I'll teach you how to be a content creator like me, the cool kids.
So
I'll
bad.
teach you how to be a real man. Now bend over and cough so I can give you my herbal supplements that'll boost your testosterone.
Nazi Party is. So again, something else to keep in mind is that the Nazis treated physical violence as a propaganda tool, and the stormtroopers, brown shirts, essays, whatever you want to call them, they were tasked to provoke confrontation. They were being told specifically, go out, start fights, intimidate people. And this became a really big issue in the streets of Berlin, and there was like an ongoing civil war between the Nazi Party and the Communist Party. So how did Horst Wessel become a martyr for the Nazi cause? January 14th, 1930, Horst Wessel opens the door expecting to meet a friend and gets shot in the face by a communist. And news travels fast, even without the technology that we have today. So Wessel is lying in the hospital, seriously wounded. Goebbels is already released. Report.
Let's just be real. Kirk was dead. Yeah. I get. Yeah, I know. I totally get. It's just.
Reports and publishing press releases saying that those who had carried out the attack were degenerate communist subhumans. And it's also important to note that Goebbels like went to visit Wessel in the hospital 4 times. Wessel took almost a month to die, so Goebbels had a lot of time to like spin up this story and even like conferred with Wessel's mom about like how she wanted to handle it. So after his death, the communists and the Nazi Party give completely different accounts of what happened. Like,
Do you guys find it funny that Goebbels was more respectful of this dude's dead body than Erica Kirk has been to Charlie? I'm sorry, that's fucked up. But
I would not ever say that again. Holy fucking optics, Batman. For legal reasons, that was a joke. So, yeah, okay. So, no. Question. Um, how do we know for a fact that it was a communist? You sure it wasn't just a Nazi or a Nazi who decided that he wasn't Nazi enough? Hmm? How do you know?
well, we checked his Discord.
Oh, true. And he was just so you're saying that Vessel was the Horst.
doesn't matter to the story at all, but like I want to be so clear that this shooting was so messy. Like Vessel was not an upstanding guy. Yes, the guy who shot him was a communist, but also like Vessel had been sex trafficking women as a pimp, and the fight was actually over him getting evicted for not paying rent and using his apartment illegally for prostitution. There's like no really good accurate report of like what went down because everything has been so like propagandized. How Donald Trump was quoted as talking about the ballroom building.
Like the day after. You didn't see this shit? It was pretty close after. It was pretty I hate that he's so fucking funny. There's another quote that's going around where he's like, "Yeah, we need to put our country through a time of grieving or whatever." It just moves on.
So sad. I'm gonna cry in my ballroom.
He was talking about CK getting murdered. So February 6, 1930, they catch the guy who shot Vessel.
Can we be real? The way investigations happened back then, he should have never been caught. I would have been on a LeBron run back then.
And Joseph Goebbels had this to say in his diary. Vessel's murderer has been caught. Terrible revelations. Lots of work yesterday. I am working on my new apartment. Maybe I'll just stay here.
So sad. So sad.
Rent another
I'm gonna
room.
go cry in my ballroom.
Maybe
They
she'll go
said,
into it as
"Wow,
well.
such big balls for such a small room."
Just maybe she'll go into it as well, but I wonder because like if this propaganda machine was working as hard as it was, Like, there are doubts after a couple days over the validity of Tyler Robinson actually shooting Charlie Kirk. I'm not saying those are well founded, but there are doubts. Uh, a month after of a highly politicized shooting, like if they caught a random dude who happened to be a communist a month after Charlie Kirk got shot, I'd be yelling bullshit. Jesus
No,
Christ.
no,
Yeah.
no, 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 no. Candace Owens is pushing conspiracy theories about Tyler Robinson being not being the shooter. Like she she tweeted out yeah, no, she tweeted out a picture of Tyler Robinson in a fucking restaurant getting food, going, "This was Tyler Robinson in a KFC 17 minutes after the shooting to Charlie Kirk. Can make it make sense or some shit."
Get a little famous bowl after after hitting a shot. I mean, famous bowls are good. What? No, and it sucks, right? Here's been my problem with it is because I believe in institutions. I believe in proof. But Kash Patel and the FBI are so fucked right now. It's tough not to believe a little bits of it here and there. It's like I don't
Talk
want to
about
go down
another
this
fucking
path.
retard.
Yeah.
As horrible as it is for the country and our discourse, I find it incredibly funny if Cash Patel manages to bungle up both the Tyler Robinson and the Luigi Mangione cases so bad. Yes, but also, so okay, hear me out. Tyler Robinson getting off would just cause civil unrest. Luigi Mangione getting off would just create another Vogue model. And I don't know what's like it's they're funnier in different complete ways. Like just the idea of you manage to murder or allegedly murder a top CEO of a healthcare organization, and then that leads to your big breakthrough in mass media and becoming a supermodel, or your political enemies fucking up litigation so much that you get off scot free from executing one of their pundits.
What's
Um,
Luigi's? I- if he's
no, no, the
if
gun
he's
didn't
not
fit in the.
if he
No, 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 no. Unironically, the theory from Cash Patel and FBI right now is that Tyler Robinson assembled and disassembled that rifle 4 times to stash it into his backpack. 4 times.
if he's
That's
not
retarded.
trans, if he's not trans, he's not your man's. I'm telling you. That's what I'm whipping out. Yeah.
He's not your man.
That's what I'm whipping out on the defense.
Yeah, whipping it out right on the forehead. Also,
Place renovated. In any case, I will make it more spacious and more home-like. What are the fucking odds? So Vessel dies of sepsis in the hospital a month later, and Goebbels sees his opportunity. On February 23rd, he writes in his diary about how he's going to turn Vessel into a new martyr for the Third Reich. Publishes a eulogy in his propaganda newspaper in these overtly Christian tones. He says, "A Christian socialist, a man who calls out through his deeds, 'Come to me, I shall redeem you.' A divine element works in him, making him the man he is and causing him to act in this way and no other. One man must set an example and offer himself up as sacrifice." Now, something else to keep in mind is that Goebbels loved a good martyr, and this wasn't the first time that he had tried this. He also would go on to establish this list called "Those members of the movement who have been murdered," and like went around setting up like stupid little shrines where like you had to like salute or you would get arrested. And this propaganda campaign, I cannot stress enough, goes absolutely fucking ham. People are on board. So the propaganda campaign works, and Wessel gets elevated into this like quasi-religious sacrifice, like the leading martyr for the Nazi cause. He starts to get like mythologized and turned into legend. He's built up as this like enigmatic, capable, super brilliant, gifted, courageous young Nazi. Life was taken away too soon. Leave out the part about him being a sex trafficker. They throw this huge state
Black women weren't smart enough to be pilots.
Just real quick, like this, I could agree with that. The sentence after that is they had to take jobs from white men. So I don't know. That seems more like a general shot at that point. But we'll move on.
funeral, and a bunch of like the Nazi leadership shows up. I couldn't find any information about pyrotechnics. I apologize. Goebbels claims that like 30,000 people watched this funeral. They have it filmed for like use in like political propaganda later. Like literally mining content, right? But Kate, what about the theme song? I'm so glad you asked. So fucking stupid. So Wessel played this obscure German instrument called the Martinshorn, and he literally started a Nazi jam band. Put together a group of musicians who would go around to different like Nazi rallies and play patriotic songs. Some of which were songs that Wessel had basically parodized into being about like Nazi stuff. One of these songs had previously been published in Goebbels' newspaper. It was called "Raise the Flag," and they changed the name to the Hearst Wessel song, and that became the co-national anthem of Nazi Germany. And again, I cannot stress enough how much this propaganda campaign worked. Entire cult of personality sprung up around Wessel, and by like singing the song, Germans were committing to imitate and uphold the values of Wessel. You would be willing to die a martyr's death for the Third Reich. Goebbels continued to use this like martyrdom cult of personality thing for years. There were Wessel streets and squares, a hospital, the
Oh God, are you being real? I thought this is not a joke. Thank God. Yeah. Okay.
I am just gonna say that the Onion has a very funny thing that they could do. This just in: a new article released by the Onion, an uptick in shootings occurring on Charlie Kirk Avenue, is on the rise. All I'm saying.
town where he was
Would be
from was
good.
renamed after him. There were children's books, biographies, movies. He was a massive part of the culture. Vessel's name became sort of a shorthand for the core tenets of Nazi ideology. Newspapers called him a hero and talked about his sacrificial death, how he passionately inflamed millions, and he was a driving force behind the struggle for freedom. Like, so that was a lot, but
I don't know.
what can we learn from
I don't know what you're talking about.
this? Nazis deliberately transformed Vessel's story. They took Vessel's sad little life and sordid, violent contributions to the Nazi cause and turned him into a legend that supported their political needs. He was not a heroic figure. The Nazis needed heroic figures in order to hold the movement together. And Vessel, a minor Nazi street thug with a penchant for writing parody songs, became the hero that they needed. Right now, we are witnessing the birth of a martyr in live time. Question remains, have they picked someone who is going to further unify or be further divisive to the cause? I don't know the answer to that, but I do know that right now the most powerful thing you can do is educate yourself. Look up the mechanisms of fascism. Look up how fascism spreads and roots and grows. Call it out when you see it. Because yesterday on stage, I didn't see power. I saw fear and desperation and a desperate need to control the narrative.
All I'm gonna say, in an alternate universe, it would have been Steven Crowder, and if it was Steven Crowder, we would have had some banger music videos and cross gender cross dressing. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Just imagine Trump. Just imagine Trump coming out to a Steven Crowder like a screamo parody song, right? With the wig and everything. 5 calls, 5 calls takes phone banking and makes it as simple as possible for any retards like me to be able to get involved with politics. Basically, you go to the website, you put in your information, and it tells you who your senators and representatives are, and then you call them and bother them. It is your civic duty, your civic calling to annoy the shit out of your politicians until they start doing their jobs. Um, and it gives you a list of topics that you can call. It gives you a prompt you can follow to where you don't have to improvise your statements. You can just follow the script, leave the message, annoy their staff, annoy them. Um, as for beyond this, beyond just this, beyond just phone banking, please go to your local Democratic Party meetings. You have to go. They don't have numbers, especially in purple or red areas. You have to go to the meetings. You have to be able to give them census. You have to be involved. Go out, talk to your local politicians. If you don't have local politicians, run for office. There's also another website called Run for Something, where you, the normal layman, can run for office. It does not take that much. Just contest the seats. It's not even necessarily about winning. You have to force the GOP to spend more money than they wish because fuck them.
I think my mic just messed up. Okay, cool. Just as far as like to kind of say what Matt was saying earlier, um, one of the things that we learned through the 2024 canvassing program is actually how desperate a lot of these local political groups are. I'm not shitting you. When you can show up to like 3 meetings and get into a position of power you are probably unqualified for. It is, they are so desperate for new people. They are so desperate for young people and specifically to come in there and to help. And it really is simply a matter of grabbing it where you can and doing it. So like I highly advocate for these things. A lot of times I feel like people think that politics is this very inaccessible thing that's behind like golden gates. It's not. It's a lot more accessible than you think. You can probably like shake hands with Kamala Harris like within a couple of months of of doing active local political work, given the correct opportunities and stuff like that. So highly advocate for just going out there and doing a little bit of work in your own community. Yeah, you can head on over to pragmaticpapers.com. That has all of our volumes, all of our listings. We also have like a couple of people who do content creation on the side. So like Reason Riffs is one of them. If you're interested in looking at some of his stuff, he's at youtube.com/Reason Riffs. Kafka, I don't know if he has a YouTube channel, but he does a lot of shows and stuff like that. If he does, I will plug him. But yeah, thank you guys so much for being on. It was a fun time. I enjoyed myself. So yeah, invite me on whenever, and I got you.
Remember, my dear liberals, at the end of the day, when reason, logic, and compromise fails, concede nothing and proceed to ad hom them into the dirt.
Yes. Sounds good. Talk to you guys later.